Imagine a world where every answer you've ever accepted is suddenly questioned, not to undermine you, but to awaken you. What if the path to true wisdom isn't about knowing more, but about unlearning what you think you know? This is the essence of the Socratic method, a timeless approach to dialogue that challenges assumptions and ignites the pursuit of truth. The power of questions. A journey to self-discovery. Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher, believed that wisdom begins with wonder. He didn't claim to have all the answers. Instead, he mastered the art of asking profound questions. Through disciplined and thoughtful dialogue, known as the Socratic method, he encouraged others to examine their beliefs, uncover contradictions, and seek deeper understanding. This method is not about winning arguments, but about fostering a cooperative search for truth where challenge and refutation are seen as acts of friendship. Embracing the unknown, the courage to question. In today's fast-paced world, we're often pressured to have immediate answers. But the Socratic method teaches us the value of admitting, I don't know. This admission isn't a weakness. It's a courageous step toward genuine understanding. By embracing uncertainty, we open ourselves to growth, allowing us to explore complex ideas and challenge deeply held assumptions. Dialogue is a path to truth. The Socratic method is more than a technique. It's a way of life. It invites us to engage in meaningful conversations where we listen actively, question thoughtfully, and remain open to new perspectives. This approach fosters humility and reminds us that every person we encounter has something valuable to teach us. Ignite your inner philosopher. Are you ready to embark on a journey of self-discovery, to challenge your beliefs, confront your assumptions, and seek truth through dialogue? Embrace the Socratic method. Start by asking yourself, what do I truly know? Let this question guide you toward deeper understanding and personal growth. Imagine waking up tomorrow and realizing that everything you believed about yourself, your purpose, your potential, might be based on unexamined assumptions. What if the key to unlocking your true potential isn't in seeking more answers, but in asking better questions? This is the transformative power of the Socratic method, a timeless approach that invites us to engage in deep, meaningful dialogue to uncover the truths that lie within us. The courage to question, embarking on the path to truth. Socrates, the ancient Greek philosopher, championed the idea that wisdom begins with wonder. He believed that by persistently questioning our beliefs and assumptions, we could peel back the layers of ignorance and approach a clearer understanding of truth. This method isn't about winning arguments. It's about fostering a cooperative search for understanding, where challenge and refutation are acts of friendship. In today's world, where information is abundant but wisdom is scarce, embracing the Socratic method can be a revolutionary act. It encourages us to slow down, reflect, and engage in dialogues that challenge our perspectives and broaden our horizons. By doing so, we not only gain deeper insights but also cultivate empathy and connection with others. The undiscovered self. When you become the question, know thyself. The most famous words ever etched on the temple at Delphi. But no one tells you what that actually costs. To truly know thyself through the Socratic path, you must become the question. Not someone who asks questions occasionally, but someone who lives inside the question. You walk through life with one burning inquiry lit behind your eyes. What am I pretending not to know? And that one question can break the lies you've built your entire identity on. You see, society rewards performance. We're taught how to act confident, how to sound intelligent, how to seem successful. But the Socratic path doesn't care what you seem like. It demands to know what is true. Who are you, really, when there's nothing left to hide behind? This is the depth most will never touch, because they fear the silence that follows a dismantled self. But those who dare, they don't just find clarity, they find peace, unbinding the mind, escaping the cave. Remember Plato's allegory of the cave, one of Socrates' greatest gifts to humanity? Most people live like prisoners, chained in a dark cave, watching shadows on a wall, mistaking them for reality. The shadows are your assumptions, your inherited beliefs, the stories society whispered in your ears while you slept with your eyes open. The Socratic method is the moment you stop staring and turn around. It's painful, blinding, terrifying. But then, light. You step outside the cave, you see reality, and you realize everything you thought you knew was just a shadow of the truth. That's the power of Socratic questioning. It doesn't give you answers. It frees you from illusion. And once you see the world clearly, you can never go back. The destruction of the false self. Here's the harsh truth. Before you can be who you really are, you must let go of who you pretend to be. The Socratic journey breaks apart your ego, slowly, relentlessly, gently, but without mercy. And in its place, not emptiness, not nothingness, but authenticity, a self that isn't defined by applause, a self that doesn't need validation to feel whole, a self forged in the fire of truth. That's not just motivational, that's liberating. Socratic dialogue is inner resurrection. You may not sit in the Athenian agora like Socrates, but the battlefield of truth still lies before you. Every time you question your own motives, every time you challenge your own bias, every time you say, I don't know, and mean it, you resurrect the spirit of philosophy. You embody the courage of the first thinkers. You become not a product of the world, but a creator within it. And make no mistake, this is divine work. In a world of noise, to be silent and reflective is rebellion. In a world of posturing, to be honest is power. In a world of distraction, to be deeply aware is sacred. The eternal return. Begin again, each day. Socrates never promised certainty, only the promise of deeper clarity through continual questioning. That's why this journey never ends. You will wake up tomorrow and still not know everything. Good. That means you still have a reason to rise, a reason to listen, a reason to grow. Because each day is a new dialogue between who you are and who you are becoming. And if you choose to walk that path, you are no longer just a seeker of truth. You are truth in motion, the sacred weight of the unasked question. Most people spend their entire lives answering questions they were never meant to ask. What job should I get? How do I become more successful? How can I be liked? But Socratic thought slices through these illusions with a single whisper. Why do I need to ask that? Because here's the real tragedy. We are terrified to ask the questions that truly matter. Why? Because they might dismantle the life we've built. What if the success I'm chasing isn't mine? What if I don't actually know what I want? What if my entire identity is a defense against truth? These questions don't motivate you in the traditional sense. They unsettle you. They haunt you. But that's exactly what makes them sacred. Socrates didn't preach from a pulpit. He disrupted from within. He invited you to stand naked before yourself. No masks, no armor, no applause. And if you're willing to face that raw silence, you discover something most never do. Your life can begin again, not someday, right now, through inquiry, the descent into inner dialogue, where the real war happens. Let's be honest, the hardest questions aren't asked in public. They arise in the stillness of 3 a.m. when the world is quiet and your excuses have no audience. Why am I afraid of slowing down? Why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Why do I sabotage the very things I say I want? These aren't theoretical puzzles. They are spiritual battlegrounds. The Socratic method is not academic here. It's not ancient. It's alive. It's the flashlight in the dark room of your soul. It doesn't tell you where the monster is hiding. It lets you find it. And when you do, when you finally face the belief that's held you prisoner for years, you realize something profound. You were always the jailer, and you always held the key. Ego death, the final threshold. Socrates had no credentials, no money, no platform, yet he shook Athens. Why? Because he showed people that everything they were proud of, every opinion, every title, every polished image, meant nothing without self-knowledge. He threatened the ego, and the ego retaliated. That's why they killed him. Because deep questioning is dangerous, not to others, to the self you've built on untested foundations. When you let the Socratic flame burn through your certainty, something dies. But something holy is born in its place. A self not based on opinion, but on essence. A way of living that asks, what is good? Before it asks, what do I want? A soul that values meaning over performance. This is the end of ego and the beginning of freedom, the eternal dialogue. You are the method. Now there is no graduation from this path. Socrates never said, now I understand. He kept questioning until the day they handed him the poison. And even then, he asked questions until the cup touched his lips. He died not with certainty, but with curiosity, with grace. He wasn't trying to be remembered. He was trying to stay awake. That's the final secret most motivational voices will never tell you. The Socratic method isn't a technique. It's a way of being. It's the sacred discipline of holding the question like a flame, without rushing toward easy answers, without needing to be right, without fearing what will fall apart. Because when you live inside the question, you become something greater than informed. You become wise, beyond the method. The place where questions die. The Socratic method teaches us to doubt, to peel, to strip. But what lies beyond all the questions? What do you find when you've taken apart every assumption, every belief, every piece of borrowed truth, and you're left with nothing? Nothing but the raw presence of you, without a name, without a label, without a script. That is the true end of the Socratic path. Not an answer, not knowledge, but emptiness pregnant with possibility. It's terrifying at first, because we've been taught that knowing is power, but Socrates reveals something more ancient. Not knowing is sacred. Not knowing is freedom. Not knowing is the doorway to real seeing. Because when you finally let go of needing answers, you become open enough to hear what life has been whispering to you all along. The garden of unknowing, where the soul listens. There's a moment that every seeker eventually reaches, when the noise of the world and the noise of their own mind begins to quiet. It doesn't come from winning an argument. It doesn't come from reading more books. It comes from surrender, from allowing the mind to bow. That's when the real Socratic transformation happens, not in conversation with others, but in stillness with your own soul. You begin to hear a quieter voice, not the voice of your ego or your education, but the voice beneath all that. The voice that asks, what would it mean to live without fear? And if you stay with that question, if you don't run to fill the silence with cheap certainty, you will feel something rise within you. Not knowledge, not motivation, but wisdom. Wisdom that cannot be taught. Wisdom that you don't get, you become. Socratic flame. From method to mysticism, Socrates died with a smile. Why? Because he wasn't afraid to die. Because he had already died 1,000 times. In every question, every ego-shattering moment, every instance where he said, I do not know. He was not a man clinging to life. He was a soul already free. And now you know the secret. The Socratic method is not intellectual. It is mystical. It is not just about thinking more clearly. It is about seeing who you truly are when all thinking falls away. This is not the end of the journey. It is the disappearance of the path entirely. And when the path disappears, when there's no longer a you seeking, no longer a goal, no longer even a question, what remains? presence, unshakable, unmovable, unnameable. The final Socratic realization: you are the answerless answer. So here you are. No more layers to peel, no more illusions to protect, no more questions to ask. Only this: a breath, a stillness, a vast awareness behind your thoughts. This is not philosophy anymore. This is liberation. It's what Socrates meant when he lived and died without fear. It's why the oracle at Delphi called him the wisest man in Athens, because he knew that he knew nothing, and in that space he became everything. A final whisper from the silence. If you've made it this far, you've crossed a line most people will never see. This isn't motivation. This isn't a method. This is an invitation to transcend your former self. And now I ask you, not with drama, but with reverence, can you sit in the silence long enough to hear the voice beneath all questions? Because if you can, you don't just follow the Socratic path, you become it.